It started on a night that wasn't supposed to mean anything. Just a New Year's get-together, nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, at a friend's apartment in Portland. The kind of thing you say yes to because it feels lazy not to. End of year, everyone pretending like midnight means something more than another number flipping. But we needed a break, Lauren and I. Or at least that's what I told myself. The drive up was quiet. Not awkward, just thin. We used to talk about everything during car rides. Random songs on the radio. Dumb ideas for side businesses. We'd make up stories about the people in the cars next to us, laughing at ourselves the whole way there. But now, she was mostly on her phone. Said she had some last-minute work texts to go through. I nodded, kept my eyes on the road. Didn't say what I was thinking, that even her silence was starting to feel intentional. The party was already in full swing by the time we arrived. Dim lights, laughter bleeding from the kitchen to the living room. A vinyl playing some indie band I couldn't name. It was one of those apartments that tried a little too hard to look effortless. Exposed brick, but then I noticed something. The moment we stepped inside, her eyes scanned the room with purpose. Not curiosity, not polite interest. She was looking for someone. She found him in the back, near the kitchen island, laughing over drinks with two other people. I didn't even realize we were moving until she was already pulling me gently toward that direction. Come on, I want to introduce you to someone, she said. Mark. He looked exactly like the kind of guy I used to not worry about. Clean-cut, relaxed, confident without being loud. He had that effortless charm that made people listen when he talked, even if he wasn't saying anything interesting. The handshake was solid, maybe a little too firm. He smiled at me, like we were old friends already. I tried to mirror the expression, but it didn't reach my eyes. This is my husband, Lauren said to him, lightly touching my arm as she said it. But even the word husband sounded like it had quotation marks around it. She used to say it with pride. Now it felt like a footnote. I don't know if it was the wine, or the music, or the fact that we'd both been drifting lately, but the rest of the evening unfolded like something out of a movie I didn't want to be in. Lauren and Mark clicked into place like magnets, like two people whose rhythm didn't need tuning. Inside jokes, knowing glances, casual touches that were easy to miss unless you were looking for them, and unfortunately I stood by the drink cart for a while, pretending to be interested in the craft beer selection. A couple of her coworkers made small talk with me, but my mind was elsewhere. Every time I glanced over, I saw Lauren next to him, laughing too easily, leaning in when he spoke, brushing his arm when he made a joke. I've seen Lauren laugh. I know the difference between polite and real, and what I saw that night, that was real. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I kept trying to convince myself it was harmless, that I was overthinking, that I was just tired or jealous or reading too much into things. But then came the moment that changed everything. I had just stepped back into the living room from the hallway when she walked over to me. She had a fresh drink in her hand, something pink with a twist of lime, and that look on her face. You know, the one. The don't ask questions look. She didn't ask how I was doing. Didn't suggest we mingle together or introduce me to anyone new. Instead, she leaned in, like she was about to kiss my cheek. But instead, she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Please don't make this a thing tonight." I blinked. Sorry, what? She pulled back slightly, her smile still painted on for anyone watching. But her eyes were flat. You know what I mean, she said, voice low and casual, like she was commenting on the weather. Let's not do the jealousy thing. It's not a good look. That was it. That was her version of damage control. No denial. No explanation. No attempt to say, hey, I know how that might have looked, but it's not what you think. Just a directive. A warning disguised as kindness. And suddenly, I wasn't just the guy feeling weird about his wife being too close to a coworker. I was the guy being told not to feel weird. The guy being accused of something before even saying a word. It flipped something in me. I didn't respond. Just gave her a tight smile and nodded, like I was agreeing. But inside, I felt like the room had tilted. I realized in that moment that the conversation she had with herself, about how this was going to go, had already happened. She wasn't reacting to me. She was defending against the version of me she had already invented. The controlling husband. The insecure guy. That's when it hit me. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't making it up. I was being managed. She wasn't trying to stop a scene. She was preemptively writing me out of one. I stepped outside onto the balcony for some air, trying to collect my thoughts. The Portland night was colder than I expected, but it felt good, sharp, clean, real. I watched the street below, cars gliding by like everything was normal. My breath clouded in front of me. I could feel it in my gut. Something had already crossed a line. Maybe it wasn't physical yet. Maybe it was just emotional. But it was real. And she knew it. That's why she had to get ahead of it. She didn't want to explain anything. She wanted to paint me as the jealous one, the guy who couldn't handle her having friends. Because if I was the problem, she didn't have to be. When I walked back in, nothing had changed. Music still played. People still chatted. And there she was, standing next to Mark, sipping her drink and smiling at something he said. She didn't look guilty. She looked free. And I knew then, this wasn't the beginning of something. This was me arriving late to the story. The night of the party didn't just shake me. It rearranged me. Something shifted in my head after that, like a lens had suddenly been wiped clean. I didn't want it to. I wanted to go back to brushing it off, blaming it on a bad mood or stress or work burnout. But I couldn't. Once the idea is there, that maybe the person you trust most is hiding something, it's not an idea anymore. It's a lens. And once you start seeing through it, you can't go back to blindness. On the drive home from Portland, Lauren was unbothered. She played music, hummed along, even tried to tell me a story about someone's dog getting loose at the party. I listened in silence. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. Either way, her lack of guilt didn't calm me. It made me more certain. People who aren't hiding something usually notice when the air between them turns cold. That night was supposed to be the end of the year. For me, it was the end of pretending. After we got home, she went straight to bed. I stayed up, sitting in the dark with a cup of tea I didn't touch, scrolling through my memory like it was evidence. Every argument, every odd moment, every gut feeling I had waved off. And when I started lining them up in my mind, it wasn't vague anymore. It was a pattern. It started months before the party, maybe longer, honestly. But the real shift, that came in quiet moments. Nothing dramatic, just little breaks in the rhythm of our marriage. There were the late nights at work. At first, I believed her. Her office had picked up a big client, and she told me she'd be slammed for weeks. I brought her coffee on a few of those nights, or tried to. She always told me not to. "It'll just distract me," she said. "Go home, I'll be back soon." She said it like she was protecting my time. Now I wonder if she was just protecting his. There was the weekend trip she took in September. Said it was a company retreat. I remember I even helped her pack. She stood at the closet in her bathrobe, asking if the black dress was too much for a work dinner. At the time, I laughed and said, "Take it, you deserve to feel good." She smiled, kissed me, and told me I was sweet. Now that memory makes me sick. Then there was the phone, the sudden shift from normal to secretive. She used to toss it on the coffee table like nothing. Then, out of nowhere, it was always face down. Always on Do Not Disturb. She started bringing it into the bathroom, sleeping with it under her pillow. When I joked about it once, she said, "You know how nosy people are at work. Can't be too careful." And again, I believed her. I didn't want to become the guy who checked his wife's phone. So I didn't. But the signs kept piling up. Her mood changed. Not all the time, she was smart about it. But when it showed in these sharp, almost surgical ways. Snapping at little things. Rolling her eyes when I asked what time she'd be home. Getting irritated when I brought up doing something together. I asked if she was okay once, and she said, "Why do you always assume something's wrong?" The irony didn't hit until much later. And then there were the me days. That's what she called them. "I need a me day," she'd say, like it was self-care. At first, I admired it. I thought it was healthy. She'd take a Saturday to herself, go shopping, go to the spa, sit at a cafe with a book. or so she claimed. But the longer it went on, the less believable it became. She stopped offering details. I'd ask, "Where'd you go today?" And she'd shrug. Nowhere special. No stories. No photos. No little purchases to show me. Just empty timelines. Holes in the day. And slowly, something about her started to change. Physically. Subtle at first. A new perfume. A new skincare brand I'd never seen. Underwear that looked expensive. Pieces I'd never seen her wear for me. I noticed her getting ready longer in the mornings, even when she wasn't going anywhere. I once complimented her, said she looked amazing. She said, "I like looking nice for myself now." Now, she never used to phrase it like that. I even remember a specific night in October. We were watching a movie or trying to. She kept glancing at her phone. I finally said something, tried to joke. "Texting your secret boyfriend?" She gave me this look. Not playful. Not even amused. She said, flatly, "Don't be immature." And just like that, I was the bad guy for noticing. That became a theme. Anytime I brought up how distant she seemed, how her hours weren't making sense, how she was colder lately, she'd flip it. I was clingy. I was needy. I was acting like I didn't trust her. She even accused me once of being jealous of her success, of her independence. I was floored. Felt like I had walked into someone else's argument. It wasn't until December, right before the party, that I really started looking back with intention. I had no proof, just instincts. But instincts are loud when you stop silencing them. I remembered how she used to call me during her lunch breaks. Like clockwork. Those calls had stopped. I remembered how we used to send each other dumb memes during the day. That stopped too. One day I checked our message thread and realized the last, "I love you," came from me. Weeks ago. Her replies had turned into one-word answers and KS. The final straw before the party, before the whisper in my ear that labeled me the problem, happened on a Sunday night. We were cleaning up after dinner, and I found a receipt in her coat pocket. Not snooping. It literally fell out when I picked it up from the chair. It was from a hotel. Just a generic bar tab from one of those downtown hotels with a trendy rooftop. 2 drinks. A date I recognized instantly. A night she told me she stayed late to help prep for a pitch. I held it up to her. "You didn't tell me you went to a hotel bar." She didn't flinch. "It was after work. A few of us stopped by for a drink." "Is that a problem?" "You didn't mention it." She snatched it out of my hand. "Because it wasn't a thing." God, can I breathe without reporting every step I take? I dropped it. I shouldn't have. But I was tired. Tired of being made to feel like a detective for asking basic questions. Looking back, that wasn't a bar tab. It was a breadcrumb. And I ignored it. Now I see it all so clearly. How it wasn't one big betrayal, but a slow unraveling. A dozen little absences. 100 edits to her tone, her time, her body language. She wasn't slipping away. She had already slipped. I just hadn't caught up to it yet. I used to think she was tired. Worn out from work. Burned out from routine. That maybe, just maybe, we'd lost our spark and she didn't know how to say it. But that wasn't it. She hadn't lost herself. She had found something else. Someone else. And I had been standing on the outside of that decision for months, trying to keep a door open that she had already locked from the other side. I didn't find out because I went looking for betrayal. That's the part people always get wrong. They imagine some dramatic moment. Me snooping through her phone at midnight, hacking passwords, following her in my car like some unhinged detective. But the truth is quieter. Almost boring. The kind of moment that only becomes explosive after it happens. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Nothing special about it. Rain outside. The usual gray Portland sky pressing low. Lauren had left for work earlier than usual. Already irritated about something I didn't ask about. I was home that day, working remotely, moving between emails and half-finished tasks. Her work laptop sat on the dining table. She had started bringing it home more often. Said it was easier than lugging files back and forth. I never touched it before. Not out of respect exactly, but out of habit. It wasn't my space. It wasn't my business. Until it was. The screen was on. Not locked. Just sitting there, glowing faintly, like it was waiting for someone. I walked past it twice before I noticed the notification banner at the top of the screen. Upcoming meeting confirmed. The title caught my eye because it wasn't framed like her usual meetings. No client name. No internal project code. Just a location and a time. And beneath it, a calendar preview. Hotel name. Downtown. My first instinct was denial. I literally laughed to myself. Thought maybe it was a conference room with a weird name or a placeholder that hadn't been updated. But my body didn't believe that lie. My chest tightened before my brain could catch up. I told myself I'd just glance. Just enough to reassure myself that I was being ridiculous. One click. The calendar event opened fully. My eyes went straight to the details: date, time, repeat frequency. That's when my stomach dropped. It wasn't a one-off meeting. It was recurring. Same day of the week. Same time. Same hotel. Every other Thursday, like clockwork, stretching back months. I scrolled. Attached files appeared below the event. PDFs. Confirmations. Reservation numbers. Hotel bookings. 2 names. Hers and his. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was in the chair, staring at the screen like it was written in a language I didn't understand. My hands felt numb. Not shaking, just empty. Like the connection between thought and movement had been severed. I clicked into her email. Still logged in. That was the moment it stopped being suspicion and became something else entirely. The emails weren't explicit. They didn't need to be. They were worse than that. Efficient, practiced, comfortable. Messages about adjusting timing. About last time being rushed. About same place as usual. Replies with casual confirmations. Inside jokes. Familiarity that only comes from repetition. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion or a moment of weakness. This was a system. I started matching dates. Work trips she'd told me about. Late nights. Evenings where she came home showered, distant, already half asleep. I pulled up our text history alongside her calendar. Every gap lined up. The night she said her phone died? Hotel booking. The client dinner that ran late? Hotel booking. The conference prep weekend? Hotel booking. It felt like someone had taken my life and laid a transparency over it, revealing a second version underneath, the real one. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't feel anything dramatic at all. What I felt was precision, cold clarity, like my brain had switched into a mode that didn't allow emotion because emotion would get in the way. I took **TS. Every email, every booking, every calendar entry. I saved them to a folder, labeled with dates. I photographed the screen with my phone too, just in case. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I moved slowly, methodically, like I was documenting someone else's life. At some point, I noticed how calm I was. That scared me more than anger would have. When Lauren came home that night, she kissed me on the cheek like she always did, asked how my day was, complained about traffic. I watched her face while she spoke. The confidence, the ease, the way she moved through the lie like it was muscle memory. She had no idea I knew. And for the first time since all of this began, I understood something clearly. Confronting her immediately would give her control. Tears, excuses, partial truths. She'd frame it, minimize it, rewrite it. I didn't want a story. I wanted facts. So I stayed quiet. Over the next few weeks, I kept collecting. I didn't change my behavior. I didn't accuse. I didn't hint. I let her keep living the life she thought was invisible. Every business trip added another confirmation. Every expense report was another nail. I consulted a lawyer quietly. Not to punish her, not yet, but to understand what reality looked like if I stepped out of the illusion. The lawyer didn't look shocked. He just nodded and said, "This is thorough." That word stuck with me. Thorough. That's what her betrayal was. Not reckless. Not impulsive. Thoroughly planned. Thoroughly hidden. Thoroughly practiced. By the time I was done, there was no doubt left to wrestle with. No what-ifs. No room for interpretation. The affair wasn't a theory. It was documented. And the man I thought I was, the one waiting for explanations, hoping for misunderstandings, disappeared the moment I closed that laptop. What replaced him was quieter, focused, and done pretending. I thought the hardest part would be discovering the truth. It wasn't. The hardest part was pretending I hadn't. After everything I'd seen, the emails, the bookings, the calendar invites, the predictable rhythm of her betrayal, I still smiled when she walked into the room. I still asked how her day was. I still nodded when she said she had another late meeting, even when I already knew exactly where she was going, down to the room number. That level of restraint changes you. It rewires something. Because when you really know, and you choose silence over explosion, you stop being the person you were before. I could feel the difference in my own face, the tightness behind my eyes, the way my voice had to climb out of my throat instead of falling out naturally. Everything felt rehearsed, not in the way I used to accuse her of, but in a way I now understood too well. She thought she was acting. She didn't realize I was too. The first thing I did was get organized. Not emotionally, logistically. I created a folder on a hidden drive, password protected, labeled innocuously, Tax Docs 2022. Inside were layers of subfolders, *TS of messages, PDFs of receipts, bank statements, travel itineraries, photos of hotel lobbies pulled from her Instagram stories that she had claimed were team outings. It became my own little archive of erasure, proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. Every lie had a timestamp. Every betrayal had a date. It wasn't about revenge. That part was important to me. I wasn't trying to burn her life down or make a spectacle out of it. I just wanted something solid. Something she couldn't twist later, when it all came to the surface and she started rewriting the narrative. I already knew how that story would go. We were drifting. He wasn't present. It just happened. No, it didn't just happen. It was built. I needed to be ready. I met with my lawyer 3 times in total. Each time was quiet, calculated, sterile. His office was minimal, all matte black and leather, nothing personal on the walls. I liked that. It felt like a clean break from the chaos I was living in. No emotion, just action. He walked me through my options. What the split could look like. How to document my side cleanly. What to avoid. What to prepare for. He wasn't surprised by anything I told him. That part stung more than it should have. When I asked him if people ever reconciled after something like this, he just gave a small, diplomatic shrug. Rarely, he said. They try. But something changes in the foundation. It's like a hairline crack in glass. You can't unsee it. You can't trust the strength anymore. I nodded. I already knew. I wasn't there to fix us. I was there to protect the version of me that came after us. At home, Lauren carried on as if the world hadn't shifted. She planned work events. She left for her offsites. She came home late and overcompensated with kisses that didn't land where they used to. Sometimes she'd bring home dinner like it was a favor. Other nights she'd be on the phone for hours, speaking in that low, polite tone reserved for someone she really cared about. Not me. I stopped asking questions. I started noticing details instead. One day she left her dry cleaning receipt on the counter. On it, a cocktail dress I didn't recognize. A color she didn't usually wear. Another day I caught a glimpse of a bottle of cologne in her car's side pocket. Not hers. Not mine. She claimed it was from a coworker who had carpooled once. I didn't argue. I just added it to the folder in my mind. There's a strange kind of power in holding back. Knowing the full extent of someone's lie and choosing deliberately not to reveal that you know. It shifts the power dynamic. She was still operating in deception, playing a part. I had already stepped off stage. I was in the audience now, watching her rehearse for a show that had already been canceled. It wasn't easy. There were nights I had to leave the house just to keep myself from exploding. I'd go for long drives with no destination. I'd sit in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store and just exist, just breathe, just remind myself not to say anything yet. Because as much as I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, to force her to look me in the eye and say it, I knew that confrontation without preparation would just be noise. I didn't want noise. I wanted finality. In those quiet weeks, I started thinking about what my life would look like without her. That was new. Before, every plan I made, every goal, every vacation idea, every thought about the future included her. She was in the margins of everything. Now, I started imagining what it would be like to live alone, to wake up without the tension in the air, to walk into a home that felt like mine again. And to my own surprise, I didn't dread it. I began pulling back emotionally. Not in a way she would notice, at least not at first. But I stopped initiating anything. No more reaching for her hand on the couch. No more asking if she was okay when she came home distracted. No more making coffee for two. She noticed eventually. "Are you mad at me?" she asked one morning, sipping from her mug, eyes studying me over the rim. I shrugged. "No. Why would I be?" She didn't answer, just nodded slowly and looked away. That was her first tell. The first crack in the performance. Somewhere in her, she could feel the shift. But she didn't know what it meant yet. She probably thought I was pulling away. She probably thought she had the moral high ground. The irony was almost poetic. I didn't tell anyone what was happening. Not at first. I kept it to myself because part of me still didn't want to say it out loud. Like if I said it, if I gave it form, it would become more real. And it already felt too real. Eventually, I told one person, my older brother, Michael. He's not the emotional type, but he's solid. Grounded. The kind of guy who doesn't say much unless it matters. We sat in his garage on a Sunday afternoon, drinking beers with the door open and the game playing quietly on a radio. After I laid it all out, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he said, "You know, people always think cheating is about the other person. But it's not. It's about the liar. Always has been." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. "You gonna stay?" he asked eventually. "No." "Good," he said. Then he passed me another beer. That was it. No lectures. No drama. Just clarity. After that, I started making real moves. Quiet ones. I opened a separate bank account. I copied down all our shared passwords. Insurance policies. Mortgage details. Titles. Every boring adult thing we used to manage together. I changed my mailing address for certain things, work, financials, to my office. I scouted apartments. Just looking. No commitments. But I bookmarked 3 that made me feel something. A strange kind of peace. The kind that comes from knowing you could leave. That you weren't trapped. Lauren remained oblivious. She had no idea the walls were closing in. No idea that the version of me who would have begged, argued, fought, had already packed up emotionally and left. She still texted me from hotel lobbies, pretending to be at client dinners. She still put on her tired from work face when she came home in the same blazer she wore every time she went to meet him. But what she didn't realize is that while she was planning her next business trip, I was already building my exit. Every lie she told became a brick in the path that was leading me away from her. And she didn't even see it. Because when you're too busy performing for someone, you forget to notice when the audience gets up and walks out. 2 years passed. That's how long it took for everything to settle, or at least that's what I told myself. Grief doesn't follow a calendar. It just fades in unpredictable waves. Until one day, the silence feels normal and the absence stops screaming. After Lauren moved out, I stayed in the house for a few months. At first, I thought I needed the space to reclaim something, to prove that it hadn't all been a lie. But every corner of that place felt like a ghost version of our life. I couldn't sit on the couch without remembering how she curled up next to me like nothing was wrong. I couldn't stand at the kitchen sink without seeing the post-it notes she used to leave. The fake love yous now stripped of meaning. Eventually, I packed up and left. New city, new job, new apartment with blank white walls and zero history. I built a quiet life. Not lonely, just quieter. I went back to things I used to love but had set aside for us. Biking on weekends. Cooking for myself instead of 2. Reading again without being interrupted by some vague work story that I now realize was probably a cover for her next excuse. I stopped checking her social media after the divorce was finalized. At first, I looked more than I'd admit. like some part of me wanted proof that she was miserable, that karma had found her. But all I saw were curated snaps *ts. A beach here, a wine glass there, new hair, new city. Occasionally, a man appeared in the background, always blurry or half-cropped. I assumed it was him, Mark. There was no confirmation, of course. But some instincts don't need proof anymore. The way she looked in those pictures, calm, untethered, and maybe even a little smug, it was enough to tell me what I needed to know. She had rebuilt without pause. Meanwhile, I'd spent months learning how to sleep without my chest aching. I thought that was the last chapter. I thought I had closed the book. Until the moment I saw her again, by complete accident, in a place neither of us had ever belonged. It was a regular Saturday. I was *ling time at a shopping center just outside the city. I had gone in to replace a pair of running shoes. Nothing special. I was walking out of the store, box tucked under my arm, when I saw a flash of someone familiar across the food court. At first, I didn't even register her. I noticed the child first. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, with dark blonde hair and a ponytail, swinging a stuffed animal around as she tugged at the hand of the woman beside her. Then my eyes moved up, and there she was, Lauren. She hadn't seen me yet. She was crouching next to the girl, fixing her jacket, brushing something off her cheek with a mother's gentle hand. Her face was calm, focused. She looked maternal. It hit me all at once. The way time had touched her face but hadn't aged her. The subtle shift in her posture. The way her eyes smiled more than her lips now. She stood up, took the girl's hand, and turned in my direction. And then our eyes met. Only for a second. A full second, nothing more. But that second said everything. Recognition. Surprise. A flicker of something unreadable. Not fear. Not guilt. Not even regret. Just removal. Like seeing a name you vaguely remember from an old contact list. Like finding a photo of a vacation you don't talk about anymore. She didn't freeze. She didn't mouth anything. She didn't nod. She didn't even raise an eyebrow. She just turned her head and walked away. Walked away. As if I had been a mistake she'd already deleted. As if I never existed. I stood there, still clutching the shoe box, my feet glued to the tile. It felt like the entire mall had gone quiet, even though people were still laughing, ordering food, calling out to their kids. I watched her walk until she turned the corner and disappeared. The little girl bouncing beside her, stuffed animal flopping with each step. My heart didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. But something cracked inside me. Not like glass shattering. More like a quiet snap, a final one. A realization, not of pain, but of permanence. I had spent so long thinking I was left. But in that moment I understood the truth. I wasn't just left. I was erased. Erased from her story. Deleted from the narrative like a glitch she didn't want in the final edit. She didn't look angry. She didn't look sad. She didn't look conflicted. She looked free. And not in the poetic way. Not finally free from the weight of a broken relationship. I mean free from me. Free from who I was, what I meant, and what we had. And I realized, in her mind, I probably didn't exist anymore. Not as a person. Not even as a mistake. Just as a placeholder from a chapter she had rewritten. I drove home in silence. Didn't play music. Didn't call anyone. I didn't cry either. I didn't have the energy for it. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring out the window at nothing, and let the weight settle. Not the weight of losing her. I had already lost her long ago. This was different. It was the weight of being forgotten. Of knowing someone once looked you in the eyes and said forever, and then one day walked past you like you were an old receipt in their pocket. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour. Maybe 5. At some point, I stood up, poured a glass of water, and went to sleep. But that night, I dreamed of her face. Not the version I saw at the mall, not the present-day version, but the old one. The one that used to smile at me across the dinner table. The one that used to tell me I made her feel safe. The one that, for a while, made me believe I'd found my person. In the dream, she was smiling. But not at me. She was holding the little girl's hand. And behind them, I stood in the distance, watching them walk away. And just before they disappeared into the blur of a crowd, she turned back one last time. But not to wave, not to acknowledge, just to look with a kind of numbness I could feel through my chest. And then she was gone again. When I woke up, I stared at the ceiling and tried to make sense of it. But there wasn't anything to make sense of. There was just the reality of what it meant. Lauren hadn't just moved on. She had edited me out. And the worst part? She did it so easily. A few weeks after seeing Lauren, I got a message out of nowhere. Dana, one of her former coworkers. We'd barely spoken before. She said she saw me in a cafe and hesitated to reach out, but couldn't keep quiet. Her message read, "You deserve to know the truth. She was pregnant when she left. Nick didn't know for sure whose child it was, and you didn't either." I stared at the screen, heart thudding, barely breathing. The little girl? Mine? I called my lawyer. The process was slow. Lauren avoided everything: emails, calls, legal notices. When she finally responded, it was cold, like she was protecting something. But the test was done. The result? 98%. She was mine. I held the test results in my hand, stunned. A daughter. My daughter. And I never knew. Lauren and Nick had built a new life, one that erased me. But I wouldn't let them erase her from mine. I didn't move out of rage. I moved for her. Through the courts, through the tension, I began re-entering my child's life. Carefully, legally, without theatrics. I can't change the past. But now I can be here. And I am. And I will be.